So this is a question for Sam. On Wednesday night in Denver, when you were speaking with Robin, you said two things that I thought were somewhat in conflict. You said, I have no religious attachment to the Second Amendment, but then you also admitted that in a previous discussion, your mind had been changed about the potential outcomes of the 2016 election. So you were essentially admitting that there was corruption in the government, or there could be problems with the government, but then you're also saying that you had no attachment to the Second Amendment. Could you more clearly define that?
I don't see the connection between those two things, though. Are you saying that one would be attached to the Second Amendment as a way of reserving the right to defend yourself against a bad government? Is that the?
Well, that's the way it's defined, right? I mean, that's the way the
yeah. I mean, so I just think we've outgrown that construal of the Second Amendment, and that's not my argument for gun ownership, insofar as I have one, is not that someday you, in the worst case scenario, will be able to defend yourself against the full might of a deranged American military, right? I mean, if the Navy SEALs come for you with their guns, you've got a problem. And no matter how many AR-15s you have stockpiled.
Yeah.
So, and I just thought, I think the case for, again, this does actually come back to seeing the world through a woman's eyes in many respects. I mean, if you look at the case for gun ownership for me is a woman living alone with a young child, and someone kicks in her door in the middle of the night. What technology do you want her to have a legal right to have to defend herself, right? And if you say nothing, she should just have a kitchen knife or a baseball bat or a golf club, or she should just dial 911. That's not where I come out ethically. I think she should have more than that, and the price we pay as a society for allowing people to own guns is ethically focused for me on that case. Now, this all goes out the window the moment we have a non-lethal alternative to a gun that has all the defensive characteristics of a gun. So once you get to something that I've kind of euphemistically or comically called a super taser, once you have a taser that really works just like a gun, but it's non-lethal, then I think we should absolutely get rid of the Second Amendment. I think we would want this non-lethal alternative that works just as well as a gun, and I think that one day that will come. But I think that this piece of NRA propaganda is true. It doesn't make it less true that it's NRA propaganda. Guns are an equalizer. A gun is the only weapon you can put in someone's hand that generally nullifies the difference between size and strength and athleticism and all the rest. And I feel that law-abiding people should have a right to equalize that difference, given the reality of violence. So, yeah.
Hi, my name. One second. Yeah. I like to talk a lot. No, Sam and I actually never discussed this particular issue. No. His answer is pretty much the same as my wife's answer, and I am pretty much on board with that at all. I don't feel the need to own a gun, but also I was in the military. I grew up on a farm area. I don't have the fear of it that some other people do, and yet I absolutely advocate for the best regulations that we can. I don't want to have to praise Trump for potentially getting rid of bump stocks. I've actually fired AR-15s with bump stocks before. I'm in favor of banning them, although I think you're much less likely to hit anything that you're actually aiming at in that situation. I don't want to have to praise him for that, but I think in honesty, if it goes through that way, I would have to. And I find that kind of frustrating. I'm rethinking so many of my positions in the light of who I don't like, but yes, we have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
My name is Vikram. My question is for both of you. During my first 2 years at UCLA, the atmosphere of the social sciences were that of truth and free speech. But these last 2 years, the atmosphere has devolved to post-truth and correct speech, and this has bled out to the rest of the campus. My question to you all is A, do you believe that the social sciences are the cause of this problem? And B, if you were the chancellor of a university like UCLA, what would you do to restore free speech and truth? Thank you.
Yeah, well, I think it is. It's largely the epicenter of the problem. I think it's what postmodernism has done to the social sciences. But I think it is. Yeah, there's certain departments that are worse than others. But it is. I think it's been well diagnosed by people like Jonathan Haidt and the work he's done at the Heterodox Academy. And I mean, so these are academics who are sensitized to this issue. And it's ideology that is in some cases it doesn't even have the pretense of trying to get at what's true. It's trying to broadcast a message that is to which people need to conform, and it has much of the structure of a religion. There's apostasy, there's blasphemy, there's excommunication. To take one case that many of you have probably heard of. There was a philosopher, Rebecca Tuvel, I believe her name was, who wrote a gender studies paper about, she just was speculating, so the fact that you can be transgender, she found philosophically interesting, given that now we have this moment where transgenderism is kind of universally celebrated. I mean, it's acknowledged to be kind of a new kind of norm, and this was the moment where where Caitlyn Jenner was being celebrated, but at the same moment there was this woman whose name is now escaping me who claimed to be transracial, right? Rebecca Dolezal, is that her name? She was white by, I think, any reasonable definition, or it was at least the definition of her parents. Her parents claimed she was white, and yet she claimed to be black. And so Rebecca wrote this paper trying just asking the question, if transgenderism is a real phenomenon, why can't transracialism be a real phenomenon? And she was just hurled from the ramparts of academia for this. I mean, her own thesis advisors, and I mean, it was just pure savagery what happened to her, and this had the character of her transgressing a kind of taboo. I mean, she touched a third rail of discourse that she didn't know existed, and all pretense of rational discussion even went out the window. I mean, there were people who were throwing her under the bus who admitted they hadn't even read her paper, but just the mere rumors of the paper was enough to destroy her reputation in their eyes. So, I think it's a problem, and the administrations have to just have an explicit policy. I mean, I think the University of Chicago came out very strongly in favor of free speech and not deplatforming people, and I think all the universities have to get on the same page on this.
I'm not as quick to dismiss postmodernism as Sam and some others, because I don't know what the hell it is. When I talk to people and they complain about it, I can never get a cohesive definition of postmodernism that's consistent across all the detractors. I think there's a lot of problems with labels, and I've mentioned this before, so I won't go on a full story here, but we use labels as shorthand. It makes it easier for us to communicate, but that's only true to the extent that the people we're talking to have the same understanding of the words and labels that we use. And we are desperate to put people in buckets and put ideas in buckets. And so the example that I've used before is I've identified as a feminist. What's that mean? Well, it depends on who you talk to. Oh, well, that can't be. Feminist has to be this. Well, that's what somebody said. What's the feminist position on pornography? Well, it depends entirely on which feminist you talk to. There are feminists as Sansara Taylor, Tasliman Azreen, who will view pornography as a vile exploitation of women. And yet we have other feminists, nobody's going to deny really, apart from internal arguments, that any of these women are feminists, like Greta Christina, who's edited porn magazines and worked as a sex worker. These labels are only as good as we allow them to be. And so when we start talking about, and I'm not going to get off on the transgender, transracial, blah, 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 what's happening is, I saw this in the election. I have friends, I did not vote for Trump. I don't think that's going to come as any surprise. But I have friends who did. And I talked to them about it. Yes, I blocked some people on Facebook in the heat of the moment. But eventually, I talked to some people about it. And what one of them told me is that I'm not a racist, and yet every time I would say anything in favor potentially of Trump or opposed to Hillary or Bernie or whoever, I just got called a racist. And that's because there are a couple different connotations of racist. There's not only implicit racism, there's explicit racism. There's the definition of racism as bigotry based on a genetic trait such as race, or a social construct, race being a social construct. And so if people are calling you or saying that you're a racist because in their view, race is a social construct, and they are talking about implicit racism, essentially saying you are endorsing policies that have a disproportionate effect on minorities. That's what they mean by racism. And yet when you hear the word racist, you hear you are a member of the KKK, there can be no communication because you're talking about two different things with the same label. We are in a transition period on some of these as we change the way we talk about things. I don't think it's always good, but I also don't think it's always bad. As we clarify our language, I think we're going to get to better understanding of things. That's going to change how we talk about some things. Yet, when it comes to the campus issues, I'm in favor of free speech, and I'm in favor of letting the universities and the students decide what kind of campus they want. And if it turns out they want a campus that nobody wants to go to, they'll deal with those consequences.
Yeah. Welcome to Evergreen.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Oh, can you please scoot that forward? Sorry about that. Thank you. Hi, guys. My name is Charlie Gentry, and I live here in Phoenix, Arizona. My question is for both of you in regards to the last several years on all the school shootings, and not necessarily the issue on Second Amendment rights and gun owners' rights, but on the issue of where do we stop talking about the guns that were used and start talking about the mental health issues of the kids using the guns.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Again, this is an area where you can see the gaffes and the errors pile up on the left side of the political spectrum. I mean, this is where some of the right-wing caricatures of the New York Times turn out to be true, because I've read editorials where basically everything said about guns and ballistics is wrong, and it's unfortunate. But there are relevant differences between guns, but they just don't tend to be the differences that you hear discussed in the media when people become most alarmed in the aftermath of a school shooting. So when you hear about people who can't tell the difference between an automatic and a semi-automatic gun, right? That's you know the conversation it's just not about the actual issue. But I've moved a little bit on this question of whether we should ban AR-15s, because one, just for purely pragmatic political purposes, I think it would be. It comes at very little cost to what I care about to say yes, let's ban AR-15s. Right now, I know a lot of people love their AR-15s and they're fun to shoot, but the reality is that it has such political significance that it's worth considering doing, and then we would find that all of the real work is still ahead of us to deal with the reality of gun violence, because it really is a matter of handguns killing most people most of the time. But there are differences. But I mean, the Vegas shooting was as deadly as it was absolutely because of the guns that man had in the hotel. What's scary about rifles of any sort is their accuracy and lethality at distance, right? And so most school shootings would still have been just as deadly had they been accomplished with handguns. But these distance shootings are really enabled massively by rifles and rifles like AR-15s, and so it does matter, but it rarely matters when most people on CNN say it matters, and that's the problem with our conversation.
I think I hate bad arguments. I hate them most when they come from positions or defending positions that I agree with or think are correct. And there's a lot of bad arguments in the talks about guns. Oh, who needs a gun? Well, it's not about need. In this case, it's about preference and about rights. Oh, well, you got to be 21 to buy a beer. Why can't you buy an AR-15 younger? Well, a lot of people think that's a potentially good argument. I think it's awful, because I think you're providing ammunition to the people who don't want to fix the problem. I think you're providing ammunition to the NRA, because it's pretty easy to point out that the prevalence of alcohol and allowing people underage to drink beer has consistently throughout history done more harm than the weapons have. And so I think you're not really building on a good foundation, which is why I get back to what I said earlier, where we don't need to exaggerate, we don't need bad arguments. We need to point out that one is too many from the standpoint of what we should tolerate as parents, as friends and family members, and that what we want is real, sensible action. And if you do this, you don't, at least when groups like the NRA come forward to say that they're trying to take away your guns and blah, 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 that's not the case. Or they're making bad arguments. No, that's not the case. Address what we actually said. And what we've actually said, or what I've actually said, is that I don't like the fact that I live in a world where there's at least some likelihood that somebody's going to get a hold of a massive weapon of war and go slaughter a bunch of innocent children. It may be an unfortunate consequence of the way we've traditionally done things, but that doesn't mean that we can't change, and it doesn't mean that change means taking away everybody's rights, engaging in fear-mongering, and supporting good action with bad arguments. It drives me nuts.
And just on quickly on the mental health issue, I think background checks and real licensing and real training required to get a gun is part of the solution. I think it's crazy to me that you should have to go through some significant steps to get a driver's license, but no such steps to get a gun. So we have to figure out what should be required to get access to that technology.
Yeah, maybe just stop letting Walmart sell them and we'll fix the problem.
Yeah.